Hi, this is Joe Chambers. Thanks for watching Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage Vault Series. The Vault Series is a series of interviews that we shot starting back in 2004, 2 years before the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum opened to the public. If you like what you see, please be sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. Thanks for watching. Today's clip features Monument Record founder Fred Foster. Fred produced Pretty Woman on Roy Orbison. He is the one that heard and signed Kris Kristofferson to both a publishing and an artist deal. In 2008, Fred was inducted into the Musicians Hall of Fame. That year, I partnered with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we hired a local company in Austin, Texas to interview Kris. Saved us both the trip, and asked the questions that we had to ask to Kristofferson. Kris did this because of his love and appreciation for what Fred Foster did for him. Hope you enjoy it. Kris Kristofferson, Fred Foster.
I had my antenna always out for the different artists. And I always treasured the artist writer. Because you don't have to go looking for songs.
The first time I ever saw Fred, it was when I was just visiting the Nashville back in the day, and he used to produce Roy Orbison and Ray Stevens, and it was one of them I was just watching him from a distance. I didn't really meet him then.
And so I get a call one day from Bob Beckham, who was running Combine.
When I met him was after Bob Beckham got me to sign with Combine, which was Fred's publishing company. And Bob was the best song plugger in town, so I went to work with him, and he got me together with Fred. I guess Fred was listening to my demos and decided that he'd like to record me on an album.
When I'm auditioning a writer-performer, I always ask them to sing me 4 songs. I learned a long time ago, anybody might look up and write 1. No, you can't look up and write 4 great songs. That's not possible. So anyway, he sat down, nervous. He'd been writing for Mary John Wilkin, and that contract had ended, and there hadn't been much success, if any, there. And so I asked him to sing 4 songs, and he did. He sang To Beat the Devil, The Valier's Dream, The Best of All Possible Worlds, and Jody and the Kid. Well, by the time he got to the 3rd song, I'm beginning to think, I must be sick. I've got to be hallucinating. There's nobody ever come in here to sing 4 songs of this quality. I'm the one that's wrong here. I mean, this is like a genius of geniuses just walked in. So I sat there, just thinking, maybe I'm not that sick. Maybe he is this great. Anyway, it's time to take a chance. And I said, yeah, I agree to the deal you need on one condition. And he said, what? And I said, that you'll agree to sign with Monument and record at least 1 album and hopefully more. And he said, well, I think you're crazy. I can't sing. And he said he sounded like a frog and all that stuff. And I said, well, maybe, but you sound like a frog that can communicate to me because you've sold me. So he said, well, I guess if you're that crazy, I am too. And so that's the next day, or 2 later, we signed our deal.
And I probably never would have had the performing career that I had later if it hadn't been for him.
But he hadn't turned in any songs, and one day he called me, and he said he needed to have a meeting with me, and I said, okay. And he came out, and he said, you need to drop me. I said, I beg your pardon. He said, I can't write anymore. The well's gone dry. I said, no. Wells like yours don't go dry, Kris.
Fred had such a positive attitude, you know. Everything that I would say negatively about myself, he would contradict, you know. And he persisted until we cut a whole album of songs, which wasn't immediately successful. He called me up. At the time, I was rotating between a week in the Gulf of Mexico with a helicopter company and a week back in Nashville trying to plug the songs. And he called me up when I was about to go back down to the Gulf one time and said he had a song title for me.
And Boudleaux had hired a new secretary. Introduced me to her. She'd been there about a week, but I couldn't remember her. Barbara, I thought, was all I could remember. And a very, very cute girl, and very interesting, smart. And she was a good secretary. But Boudleaux says about the fourth time I'm down there that day, he said, I don't think you're coming to see me. I think you're coming to see Bobby. I said, what? Bobby, what are you talking about? And he said, you know Bobby, Barbara, Bobby McGee. I said, oh, haven't you heard about me and Bobby McGee? And his hair on the back of my neck sort of rustled a little, and I said, I'll see you later. And I ran back up the steps, and by the time I got into my office, the idea had sort of crystallized, and I called Kris and said, you know, I've got an idea. And so I told him the title, and he said, so? I said, well, so we hold it as long as possible, but Bobby McGee is a she. He said, oh, all right, well, okay. That's, all right, I'll be thinking about that.
And he said it was me and Bobby McKee, and I thought he said McGee.
One of the things, of course, it was handicapping him was having to go down and fly helicopters in the Gulf of Mexico to the offshore oil rigs, you know, carrying the workers out and back. So he goes down for his last trip to work the helicopter route, and had finished that and was coming back to, I guess, the airport in Baton Rouge. Got caught in a terrible storm. Horrendous. Just rain in sheets, you know. And so that's where he got the line, you know, busted flat in Baton Rouge, waiting for the trains, feeling nearly faded as my jeans. And Bobby thumbed the diesel down just before it rained, took us all the way to New Orleans. And then you get into the windshield wiper slapping time and Bobby clapping hands. So that's where he got all that.
And I was flying out of New Orleans and Baton Rouge and stationed in Morgan City down there. But anyway, the song came together, and when I showed it to him, he flipped over it. He said he was bringing everybody into the room to listen to it, and it was a song that made the difference for me in my whole performing life. I might never have gotten out of Nashville had it not been for that one.
He went in and demoed it, and with Billy Swan and Donnie Fritz. And it was obviously a rough demo, but it had a little charm about it, you know. And so I took it down and played it for Bobby McGee. And she said, oh my, well, that'll be the end of my marriage. No one, he'll never believe that this isn't for real. And I said, well, if that cost you your marriage, you don't have a marriage. And she said, I know. And so they did divorce, actually. And his name was Bobby as well. And when Joplin hit, I understand he told people that it was written about him, which is cool, you know, I know Pierre. But then just a matter of days, Kris turned in Sunday morning coming down, helped me make it through the night. Then went off down to Peru doing a movie and wrote Loving Her Was Easier Than Anything I'll Ever Do Again. I said, boy, that's some dry well, you know. And of course, that was ridiculous, but it worked out.
Fred, it was always like having a friend in there, because I knew he believed in everything I did, and as shaky as I would get in there, he'd let me take a bottle of wine in there and get used to myself. And he was used to working with, like I said, some real good people, and I trusted him. I was reading a review of a show that Janis had done in Nashville. She wasn't there anymore, and she had sung me and Bobby McGee. I had no idea how she knew it, and I met Bobby Newirth there. He was Dylan's road manager. Anyway, Bobby had taught the song to Janis, and that's why there was a couple of lines that were a little different from the real one. And we got to, staying up all night with all these different people that were in New York at the time. And he was going to introduce me to Joan Baez and to Janis. Anyway, we went out there, and I never did get anywhere but to Janis's. Bobby introduced me, and we hit it off, and spent about a month up there in her house, living in there. And she was driving around in this Mercedes convertible sports car that had flowers all over it and everything. She was quite different from anything that I'd experienced before. The last time I saw Janis was outside of the old motel that everybody used to stay at. It's on the same street as the Troubadour. And she said, well, if things don't, she was going off to promote the record. And I'm not over it yet. The irony for me is that it was such a personal loss, a heartbreak, and at the same time, it was the biggest shot of fame that I ever got at that time. It was never the same after that, We were by the end of it, we were more like brother and sister, or something. But I loved Janis. I loved being around her. I loved teasing her. I mean, she was easy to tease because she would wear those god-awful feathers and everything. And the first time I was ever on an airplane with her, this was long before I'd played anywhere. She wanted me to go into the first class bathroom with her and fool around. And she never, I mean, I wasn't about to. I knew everybody in the plane was looking at her because she had all those peacock feathers all over her. And, and she really made me feel like a wussy. But that's one of the few times when I had better judgment. Unfortunately, the first time I heard Janis's recording of Bob McGee was when I had just gone down because she had died. But I remember the producer, but he asked me to come by his office the next day, and he had something he wanted to play me. I didn't even know she'd cut it. And he played it for me, and I had to leave the room. It was impossibly hard to hear. So much love and emotion going into the song, you know, and knowing that she wasn't there to enjoy that, you know, and I left. I remember I left his office and walked around the block, around I don't know where I walked to. You know, I don't even remember that from then on that day. But eventually I did hear it because I was back in Nashville. I went back to Nashville and I went over to Combine, which was the home away from home, and played it over and over again, just to get to where I could get through the song, because I knew by this time they had it out, and I knew I was going to hear it, and I didn't want to get emotional in front of people, you know. And Donnie Fritz was there, and we listened to that thing over and over again, you know, and finally got to where I could. I love it because of the passion and the heart and the soul that she put into everything she did. But in that one, I can just hear her saying, "Wait till this son of a bitch hears this. He's gonna die."